Hello everyone and welcome to the Practical Philosopher Show. And I am the Practical Philosopher. Now today I would like to talk about a story that shocked me when I read it. In fact, it made me a little angry actually to see this in print. And I just can't believe that reality, this is a real story. To thwart fascism, leftist students start self-defense fight club, which actually sounds awesome. Now this is from somebody named Robbie Soab at a magazine called Reason Magazine, if you can believe that. You have a leftist, communist, socialist, Marxist pinko working at a magazine calling itself Reason, which is shocking considering that most socialists have no grasp of logic or reason. If they did, they wouldn't be socialists. And this fellow, who immediately shows his bias right away by saying it sounds awesome in what is supposed to be a story, a reporting of the news, just proves what a lousy journalist he really is. And what shocked me about this story even more than the fact that somebody actually started something and called it a leftist fight club. I mean, this is no joke. These people are using the word fight club to define this group they've started. What would shock me even more was just how blatant their message was. Let's start reading this article and you'll see what I mean. Did conservative students accidentally convince their liberal counterparts to take the right to self-defense seriously? I find this so disingenuous to be very humorous. It's hilarious. So if the leftists are the ones that need to be worrying about self-defense, why would they need to take a lesson from the right? Somebody tell me that? If the leftists are the victims and they need to defend themselves, then how could the righties teach them any lessons about self-defense? Well, because as we all know, it's the leftists that are the violent ones and not the righties. How many times have you seen these leftists attack conservatives on the news? Or when have you ever heard of a conservative group showing up for a liberal group doing some kind of event and then just trying to use the heckler's code, yelling, screaming to shut them down and then resorting to physical violence? When has a conservative group ever done that? Can anybody remember? Has a conservative group ever stopped traffic by protesting, attacked innocent people just because they were wearing Trump hats or Make America Great Again hats? When was the last time you ever saw that? And of course, never. To guard against Trump-inspired hate crimes, a socialist student group at the club at the University of Central Florida has started a leftist fight club. Now, for some of you who might not know, there was a movie called Fight Club made some time ago. You had your Tyler Durden, you had a bunch of guys basically getting together to beat each other up, to learn what it meant to be a man and to feel real machismo and all that. I don't know what that has to do with self-defense. Of course, nothing. This is just a tongue-in-cheek attempt to let you know that they're not really a self-defense group. No. An ode to well-known Chuck, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name, book and film to practice hand-to-hand combat and self-defense. Well, you should remove the self-defense part because these people are not concerned with self-defense because no conservatives are ever going to be able to be attacking them. No conservatives have ever attacked them. Conservatives are only concerned about themselves. One thing. They go to work, they come home, and they watch this crazy shit on TV. Conservatives are generally individualists, meaning they only care about something if it threatens their individual welfare. So they don't need to group together and get into collectives because they got better things to do, like go to work and make money. Most of these idiot people that are protesting that are leftists are students that have been indoctrinated into American institutions into leftists, basically communists, who are not pacifists. This ought to be applauded, says Robbie Sove of the Reason Magazine, my ass Reason Magazine. So again, he is basically saying, hooray, hurrah, I support this group. Uh-huh. Aren't you supposed to be a reporter or journalist? Is this an opinion piece? In response to the record number of hate crimes against Latinas, immigrants, Muslims, women, the LGBTQIACVC6, what the fuck? What? Geez, they've added more letters since the last time I saw this. Jews, African Americans, and other minorities since the rise of Donald Trump and other alt-right neo-Nazi groups. Knights for Socialism. Oh, now wait a second. Who named this group? Knights for Socialism? First of all, the alt-right is not a real thing, okay? Second, righties are generally conservatives. They're not Nazis, but it seems like the person who named this group doesn't realize that the real Nazis back in the 1930s and 40s, they were actually socialists. It was part of their name. So, clearly this person hasn't studied history. Knights for Socialism has decided to host a series of self-defense clinics for anyone that wants to learn how to bash the fesh. They should be punching themselves in the face then. Makes me wonder if they know what the word fascist means, and we'll talk about that a little later. And the event's Facebook page reads, for our first seminar, a local amateur boxer will teach us the basics of hand-to-hand combat. Following his instruction, we will all have the opportunity to face off against one another and practice what we've learned. Doesn't sound like self-defense training to me. It sounds like you want to, in essence, become better fighters so they won't get your ass handed to you like you did at Berkeley. Okay? So for that second time, so if for people who may not know this, Ann Coulter was supposed to show up there, and she basically couldn't because the real Nazis, the Nazi University of Berkeley, shut it down. And when conservatives showed up to protest this, they had a problem about this, the real Nazis showed up and there was a brouhaha and they attacked the conservatives, but the conservatives had actually gotten tired of being pushed around and had gathered in equal numbers. And what sued was the lefties or the Nazis, who until now have been totally unchallenged as they commit terrorist acts against their fellow Americans just because they don't agree with them. They ended up getting their asses handed to them because they are collectivists, and as we all know, collectivists are cowards, which is why they form collectives. They don't have the strength, ability, or courage to operate as individuals. So you take 1,000 lefties and 1,000 righties and you get them together, and the righties will kick their ass because the conservatives can't function as individuals. They need to be a hive mind, and they work as hive groups as well. Fighting against one-on-one with a conservative, they will lose. They're just cowards. And that's what the real purpose of this organization is. To train them to be better fighters so they can win in the future when they commit more terrorist acts. Organizers stress that women, oh well, of course, they're obviously an oppressed minority. Organizers stress that women are especially welcome to attend, which is open to everyone, except Republicans, of course. Don't wait until it's too late to learn how to defend yourself. This is such disingenuous bullshit. It's clear that this is almost like a paramilitary class. This is these guys training to be better terrorists at UCF. That's all it is. The word self-defense is thrown into there just to try and legitimize it and justify them doing this. That's all it is. It's not a self-defense course. Just using the word self-defense in the title to, we just want to defend ourselves. That's why we're really doing it. It's BS. They're not going to, because they don't have anything to worry about. If they just don't attack anybody, they won't have to defend themselves. By the way, that's not self-defense if you're getting punched in the face because you punched somebody else. So this is all just a smokescreen for their real intentions, which is to beat up Republicans. Otherwise, everyone would be welcome. If this was just a standard self-defense course. In response, some students, possibly Republicans, of course, it must be some kind of Republican or conservative. It couldn't be that someone else might have a problem with it, could it? Notified the administration that the existence of the club was making them feel unsafe. Really? I wonder why. UCF is looking into the matter, which is completely unnecessary. Campus reform reports. That's a bag. That's basically a liberal rag. It's supposed to report liberal bias, but it's in no way a watchdog of any kind. It's totally liberal and biased itself. So don't trust that campus reform to be of any help. Scott Benton, a UCF college Republican, told Campus Reform that he considers the impulse toward violence to be a natural consequence of the intellectual indefensibility of leftist beliefs, saying if you can't hang with someone on a debate stage, then you resort to other means to try and justify your cause. Right, meaning violence, meaning I don't like what you say, shut up or I'm going to punch you in the face. You don't shut up, they punch you in the face. But they got their asses handed to them. You see, conservatives are a very interesting thing. Most Americans go by the motto of, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. That's it. America believes in the most important minority of all, which is the individual. We don't believe in collectivist groupthink, or at least we didn't used to. So most Americans just want to go to work, do their job, come home, be left alone. They don't have time or energy to deal with this nonsense. Now we've got an ever greater welfare state, an ever greater entitled class of people, ever greater class of supposed intellectuals teaching in universities who've never had a real job in their lives, don't know what the real world is actually about, telling young people that they have a right to things regardless of whether or not they work for them. And so now you've got a large segment of the population that are total morons that believe this leftist nonsense and effectively believe that words are equal to actions. Like a microaggression, for example. You say something that offends me. If it offends me enough, and of course that's totally subjective, I get to decide whether or not it's an aggression of some kind. I get to label those words an aggression of a verbal nature, and in my mind I've been taught that it's equivalent to a physical provocation, which then gives me the right to respond with actual physical violence because they're both the same, and you have transgressed against me, and now I get to respond in equal manner. And that's what these lefties are really talking about. They believe that words are violence because there's no conservatives out there attacking them. If you watch the news, you will not see this. What you will see is the leftist news, totally biased, just saying everybody's responsible. As you can see, Trump reporters and anti-Trump supporters are battling it out again in the street. They're both responsible for this. That's the message they're sending. They don't report that every single incident was actually started by a leftist mob attacking innocent conservatives because that would go against their narrative. And of course, they don't want to impugn the reputation of these wonderful groups like Antifa, who are actually homegrown terrorists. And this is just another example of one of these terrorist cells operating blatantly right out in the open on an American university campus. Leftist groups that practice violence, like the ones that shut down Milo Yiannopoulos at UC Berkeley and attacked Gavin McGinnis at New York University, deserve criticism. Now, see, this is very typical of leftist groups. They try to splinter themselves off so that when one does something wrong, they can kind of distance themselves from any responsibility and say, that was them, that wasn't us. We're not like that. They're all like that. Here, this is a perfect example. You can tell just by reading this article that this is nothing more than a terrorist training group, and they're learning how to become better street fighters so the next time they show up to provoke and attack conservatives, they'll be better trained for it. And this is just them trying to create some kind of a plausible deniability. We didn't have anything to do with it. That's not us. Make themselves look more valid. But Leftist Fight Club doesn't purport to start any fights. But you do? Right, you're not training to start any fights. As far as I can tell, instead it's teaching people self-defense. Why are you calling it a fight club then? You're just doing the word self-defense so that you could essentially justify the group's existence. It's not a real description. It's in no way accurate. Oh, this is very humorous. Conservatives ought to be happy that liberal students are taking self-defense seriously, since it's a practical justification for campus concealed carry, a cause celebrated by Republican students. What? Well, campus carrying a concealed weapon has nothing to do with a self-defense class, unless they're training to use handguns, which I'm pretty sure you can't do that on a university campus. I believe there's gun ranges for that. So now they're making a threat. This is a terrorist threat. Don't kid yourself, people. This is an outright threat trying to be concealed in a news story. And whoever's making this statement wants you to know it's a threat. But then if you come back at him, he's trying to create plausible deniability that it was actually a threat, by making it as a general a statement as possible when it's obvious to anybody reading it that, no, this is a threat. He's saying that they are justified now to carry guns to these events because they need to defend themselves against the evil, uber-deadly Republican Nazis. Indeed. Yes, indeed. It is blatantly hypocritical for right-leaning students to complain about needing a safe space. When? This is another thing the left like that does. They like to take the things they do, and they like to flip it around and then apply that label to their adversary. It's absurd. Of course, it's nonsense. They know it's nonsense. They're just trying to piss you off. They don't like these labels. They don't like being called snowflakes. They don't like being called weak for needing safe spaces. They're just trying to mess with you here. When was the last time any conservative group on campus anywhere asked for a safe space? They're the ones complaining about them because it limits free speech. Indeed, it's blatantly hypocritical for right-leaning students to complain about needing a safe space. A fight club is a safe space? You're standing around punching each other in the face. That's not so safe. When liberals suddenly show an interest in self-defense, why? Why do you need self-defense? Nobody's attacking you. You're the ones going out in mobs wearing black death masks with skulls on them and shit. You're all dressing up in the same way, wearing black and all, so that you can attack people, and then the crowd can sort of mesh together and reorganize itself so that any onlookers can't identify who did the attacking. So you can't hold anybody responsible. That doesn't sound like a self-defense group to me. That doesn't sound like somebody in need of self-defense. It sounds like somebody in need of combat training so they can go out and be better jackbooted thugs. Instead of whining about not being included in leftist fight club, conservatives should challenge liberals to fully commit to the principle of self-defense and embrace the Second Amendment. Second Amendment, you retard! The Second Amendment is about the Americans' right to bear arms. It's not talking about your fist, you idiot. Whoever wrote this is clearly a Marxist moron. Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. A very bad writer as well. They're also making another threat here, alluding to the right to carry a gun, which has nothing to do with this article. That's another way you know that these two mentions of Second Amendment and the right to concealed carry are threats. It's totally out of the context of this article. It has nothing to do with this article. The person writing this is reporting a direct threat to you if you are a conservative or a Republican. On a related note, the use of snowflake as a term of derision synonymous with fragile. Yes, and you are fragile and delicate. Actually originated with the movie Fight Club. As the popular line from the book film goes, you are not special, you are not beautiful, you are not a unique snowflake, you are the same decaying organic matter as everything else. Yes, that's right. That's why you hate being called a snowflake, because you are. You have to resort to combining yourself into mass collectives to enact what you feel is social justice against people who don't agree with you. You equate words to actions, and you equate words, opinions, to physical violence if they cause you offense. Total nonsense. No words justify violence. You ever hear sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me? Well, these people are the exception to the case. Words can hurt them, and they feel that words are equal to physical violence, and that justifies their attacking other people. And when they're talking about needing to defend themselves here, the only type of defense they're talking about is defense of their feelings, because the left is all about subjectivism and their feelings. Even the men, because they've been made into half men, half woman by their single moms. Now let's look at another biased report of this leftist fight club, the Knights for Socialism. So they've called themselves Knights. When you hear the word knight, you think of good guy, you think of crusader. Of course, the original Knights were nothing like that. The Knights of Socialism group at the University of Central Florida, UCF. And when I see that, I think UFC, especially when I see this guy, okay? When was the last time you saw a leftist that looked like this fella, who could actually take care of himself? And these people are usually gaunt-looking, unkept, not in very good shape, which explains why, of course, they need to get into big groups to attack conservatives, because they're so weak and puny. And that's really what this club was all about. Held a workshop Sunday to teach left-wing students how to bash the fash. Gee, that's interesting. I don't see self-defense anywhere there, and I wasn't aware that bashing people was self-defense. Now, of course, if it said how to bash the fash in self-defense, that's another clue right there, that not a very well hidden one, that these people are not interested in self-defense. That's just a smokescreen. With a leftist fight club. I mean, again, the name of the thing has enough self-defense nowhere in it. And it's open to everyone but Republicans. And by the way, that's illegal. This is a public university. They can in no way ban people from joining this group. Totally illegal. But of course, the university won't do anything, because all those people are socialist nut jobs. So they secretly love this crap. The Knights for Socialism group at the University of Central Florida, and essentially this is just the same exact story, cut and pasted from Reason magazine, that this idiot, Robbie Soav, who claims to be an associate editor at Reason magazine. And my God, if somebody with writing skills this bad became an associate editor, it's no wonder that there are so many precious snowflakes out there that have become leftists and believe this dogmatic nonsense. I mean, this paragraph is just one long run-on sentence almost. You got like 4 sentences in one sentence. The guy doesn't know how to write. And this story is essentially the same thing, but written by somebody who calls herself a reporter on liberal bias and abuse for campus reform. The very interesting thing about this article, and the reason I throw it up here, even though it's basically a cut and paste version of the exact same article that the leftist nutjob Robbie Soav posted on Reason.com, is to point out that even those people out there who are writing for so-called magazines or blogs or working for groups that are supposed to be monitoring liberal bias in college institutions, universities like this, are leftists. Even the groups that are there to monitor leftist bias in academia, because it's such a huge problem. Because you've got, on most universities, it's 12-1 Democrats versus Republicans. Even they have been infiltrated. They're corrupt. This story is the exact same story. There's nothing in here pointing out any sort of bias. It just repeats what Mr. Soav, the clearly biased douchebag, said, who lauded this group as a wonderful thing, and they're great human beings for wanting to train and beat the hell out of Republicans because they deserve it, because they're racist scum. Even though you can find no examples of them being racist. And in the first paragraph, this idiot talks about Latinas, immigrants, Muslims, women, LGBTQI 675 community, whatever, who have been had hate crimes committed against them. By who? Where's the statistics? They have been oppressed. Show me the cases. Show me one case where a Latino, an immigrant, a Muslim, a woman, somebody, because of Trump, by a Trump supporter, by a conservative, has had a hate crime committed against them. By the way, there's no such thing as hate crimes. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's just crimes and speech. Because when you take a group and make them into some kind of special category, you're making them superior to everybody else. They deserve special, added, greater protection than you do. So you have essentially elevated them above everyone else. And of course, when you're above everybody else, nobody can say anything about you, and you're allowed to be a racist, sexist scumbag to everybody else because they're beneath you for being racist, sexist scumbags, which is actually what you are, but you're elevated above them, so the rules don't apply to you. Yeah. Okay. So, this story, I mean, you gotta love this. This is perfect. This picture. You have on the left a woman, and look at the size of the guy on the right. I mean, he's a big guy, but she's kicking his ass. Kick their axis. Stop the alt-right. Now, why is this posted on a page that's supposed to be reporting and talking about liberal bias? Now, this guy, Robbie Soab, had no problem talking about how much he supports this fight club, how wonderful it is. These people who are starting it are the next coming of Christ. And they are essentially wonderful people for standing up to the evil, horrible conservatives, even though those evil, horrible conservatives have never actually resorted to physical violence against leftists in any form of provocation. But, hey, they have the wrong opinions, and those opinions offend me, and I equate words to physical violence, so it's okay if I punch him in the face. And, of course, you have a woman, yeah, who in reality, he would kill her. And then you've got the guy on the right. Oh, of course, you've got the Nazi swastika on his arm. Of course, if you ask leftists why these righties are Nazis, fascists, they really couldn't explain it to you because they don't know what a fascist is. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this girl, and you'll see right here that she's essentially herself a fascist and a leftist. Lauren Cooley is a Florida campus correspondent and reports liberal bias and abuse on campus for campus reform. This is the same group that said they saw no problem with this leftist fight club, but they are there to report liberal bias. Well, when you're reporting liberal bias, wouldn't you actually talk about how they are biased? But not only do they not talk about how something is biased, they don't even see the bias. The fight club is perfectly okay. And this leftist infiltrator into what is supposed to be a group that reports on liberal bias when she's really just their mouthpiece is a liberal arts major. Yes, she has her master's in liberal studies at the University of Miami. How amazing. She's studying liberal arts, which is a useless subject. Well, no wonder she's a leftist. She'll never get a job, so she better get her entitlements now while she still can. Make sure that when she's older she gets them. Make sure that the real Nazi fascists win in the fight for ideas. Absurd. Now, of course, this will be a much more even and correct view because this person, Milo, I'm sure you all know who he is, Milo Yiannopoulos, is talking about what a disgusting group this is. And he's actually pointing out the biases that the campus reform, who was supposed to be doing that, wouldn't do. Socialist Student Club promotes Fight Club on campus, advocates violence, and excludes Republicans. Yes! If it was just for self-defense, if it was just a plain old general self-defense group, why are they excluding Republicans? Because it doesn't make sense to train the people you're going to beat up how to defend themselves against you. Unbelievable. And the Knights for Socialism, their page says, in response to the record number of hate crimes. So this is, again, the same line they're using to try and justify them creating this club. Although I thought they were trying to justify their club by saying it was self-defense. Well, which is it? Are you afraid of getting attacked by Republicans when you show up at one of their events uninvited and attack them? Or are you justifying your existence by saying you've created this group to defend Jews, LGBTQIA, 79s, Africans, and other minorities. Well, which is it? Is it all of them, none of them, one of them? What is it? I mean, it sounds like somebody who's just desperately searching for justifications to, explain why they're doing something because they know it's so irrational and they know that the real reason would not be accepted in any way, shape, or form. Of course, this is just a smokescreen. They're attempting to muddy the waters. We all know that they are just there. They are just training to bash the fash, and that's the most telling statement they've made because it's the most truthful. Milo goes on to say that in addition to the baseless fear-mongering using non-existent statistics, they've given no examples of any oppression against any of these supposed minority groups. The event even goes so far as to explicitly exclude Republicans, an illegal action, something, of course, these people don't have to worry about because they're in collusion with the campus authorities, no doubt, who tacitly grant approval to this by doing nothing to stop it or even condemn it under the rules for student organizations in Florida higher education system. This event is open to everyone and anyone except Republicans. Gee, that's very interesting. If it was race, you'd say it was racist. What do you call it when you exclude someone based on their political views? It's certainly discrimination, but I thought they were against discrimination. I thought they were for inclusion, not exclusion. Aren't these people for diversity and inclusiveness? Oh, I forgot. That only applies to race, not to ideas. Silly me. They then add further unsubstantiated slander and baseless radical assumptions against the president by saying, ladies, the commander and thief, they are making not a small reference here to their belief that he stole the election because Hillary won the popular vote. Let's get over that right now, okay? Hillary won the popular vote because California is the most populous state, one of the most populous states in the country. You've got tons and tons of people, the whole goddamn state. The majority of them are on welfare. Most of the people that live there are Mexicans. Of course, she won the popular vote because that state, which has tons and tons and tons of liberals, all of them voted for her. So what? Doesn't mean anything. Thank God California can't decide our elections. If it did, we would already be Cuba or old communist Russia. The commander thinks a sexual predator and rapist. They get no evidence for that. Few women show up a few weeks before the election, and then they've disappeared since then. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody's heard anything from them since then. Clearly, that nonsense was fabricated. It was bullshit, exaggerated claims that held up zero to any scrutiny. They were just trotted out to give these baseless claims, to make these baseless accusations to try and impugn his character so he would lose. I find it amusing that this person writes this when there's actually evidence that the former president, Clinton, the husband of the loser, Hillary Clinton, actually was a rapist. There's quite a bit of evidence for that. So, I find it amusing that these people latch onto very conveniently labels that impugn the character of people they don't like. But when it comes to actual evidence pointing to one of their heroes being a rapist, I don't believe that. Because, of course, the left is about feelings, not facts. He has normalized sexual assault. Where? When? Where's the evidence? And it is expected that sexual violence against women is going to skyrocket in the next 12 months. Please join us. Yes, this is nothing but hyperbole gone out of control. There is no evidence that sexual violence against anyone is going to go up anywhere. Why would it? There is a baseless claim in no way grounded in reality. Karis Lockhart, the chairman for the college Republicans at UCF, who have a history of standing strong against the liberals on campus, was quoted by a local news outlet by saying, "As Republicans, we are firm believers in self-defense." Of course you are. You have to be. You're constantly getting attacked by leftist nut jobs who want to beat you up because you have different beliefs than them. I think that's called fascism. Oh, but wait, the people defending themselves, and not trying to silence others, they're the real fascists. Okay. However, encouraging violence between other students with whom you disagree with politically is downright shameful. And of course, this fight club is doing nothing more than encouraging violence. It's calling itself a fight club. It's telling you to bash fascists. It's labeling its enemies as fascists. And this is just another move by the left who like to co-opt language and then redefine it, but still use the feelings attached to the old definition to inspire new anger and hate towards people they choose to apply this relabeled word, this remolded word to. And that's what's shameful, indeed. There has been no word released from the UCF administration regarding the event or the potential breaches of student conduct by barring other students from attending based on their political affiliation. And of course, there will not be. The people at that college, they have nothing to gain by doing anything about this. They know that the local government won't do anything about it. It'll be a talking point for about 5 minutes because, of course, we all know the mainstream media are all leftists and they're not going to cover this in any real way. The only way it's going to get pointed out is by people like myself and other people in the non-mainstream media to point it out. And for those of you who might wonder what the word fascism means because the left has co-opted it and changed the meaning to suit their purposes and then chooses to basically label anyone that disagrees with them as this word to justify violence against that person, let's see right here. Now, this is the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I'm sure that the real fascists who are leftists hate this book because it gives you actual definitions for words that they don't construct. So let's look at the main definitions for fascism. Number one, a political philosophy, movement, or regime such as that of the fascisti that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and it stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Now, let's take a close look at this last part. Forcible suppression of opposition. Who is forcibly trying to suppress their opposition? Antifa. As far as the government needing to be autocratic, the government was far more centralized and autocratic under Obama than it is under Trump. Trump is trying to deregulate, while all Obama did during his 8 years was add regulation after regulation. And try to curtail people's freedoms in every way, shape, or form. So I don't see how Trump qualifies as an autocrat or a dictator in any way, shape, or form. And as for exalting nation and race, you can remove the race because Trump has at no point exalted white people over everyone else. The only people I see elevating themselves via their ideas, whether it's by race or their ideas, is the left. They are putting themselves above everybody else and saying that they are the special, they are the chosen, they know what's best for everybody else, and if you say something bad against me, it's wrong because I'm 100% right all the time, and now I have the justification to bash you, and I'll call you a fascist to justify it. I find that very amusing. And of course, the second definition, tendency toward or actual exercise of strong autocratic or dictatorial control. Yeah, like large terrorist groups who are tacitly endorsed by the government because the government and the cops and the university that it's happening at don't do anything when these nut jobs go out and destroy and terrorize like they did with Milo Yiannopoulos wanting to show up at Berkeley University, and they nearly burned the school down, breaking in windows, burning stuff, setting off firecrackers, and generally creating lots and lots of property damage, not to mention attacking people who they believe were conservatives. If you watch the videos, you'll see that quite clearly, and nobody tries to stop them. And of course, that is a perfect example an exercise of autocratic or dictatorial control. These kids are being given approval, essentially, because no one's stopping them, and they're being encouraged, in fact, by their professors to go out and do these things. And, of course, the people in the local government and even in the larger federal government, a lot of them are leftists, too, so they give tacit approval by not condemning. But, of course, in these most recent instances, it was so obvious that the leftists were the provocators, that it was so obvious that they were the ones attacking and causing problems, because there was so much footage that proved this it wasn't just a 50-50, and it never is. But the mainstream media makes it out to be like it's equally responsible. The left and the right, they're just going at it again. It's always the leftists. But it was so obvious that even the mainstream media, with their spin and their leftist need to control the narrative and to paint conservatives as evil, couldn't spin it to make conservatives responsible equally. They had to say, okay, yeah, this is disgusting, but that's not what we represent. No, you do represent that. You just make this claim that that's not what you represent when it's been proven that you are the instigator, you are the person that started the trouble. You people are always the ones that start the trouble, okay? And the people, it's been my experience, that the ones that say, oh, okay, yeah, they were the bad ones. Okay, in this instance they were bad, but we don't agree with that. But those are the people that are the real fascists. And they actually 100% are for the leftists and their cause, okay? Marxists, which is what these people are, believe that almost any and every action is allowed to further their political agenda, including lying and stealing and destroying things, okay? Especially if it's against the conservative in some way. It's a necessary statement. So that's the definition of a fascist. And Milo gave a very balanced and correct assessment of the liberal bias in academia and what actually happened there and how disgusting it was. And this tool of the left, this Lauren Cooley, this liberal arts major, or major in a non-subject that is essentially useless, is of course a leftist because she's learned something that's completely useless. And of course, as you can see, her affiliations, Fusion TV, Huffington Post, CBS, yeah, she's a leftist. And this dude, Robbie Soab, another leftist who is encouraging this type of thing, should be ashamed of himself and should take a writing class. And that is it for today, and I am the Practical Philosopher. Take care.